The black cable dangling from the wall was the end of my patience and the start of my awakening. If you're listening to this, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from, because sometimes a story finds you right when you need to open your eyes. My name is Evelyn Morales. I'm 68, a retired public librarian, and the sole owner of the house you're about to hear about. Not kind of owner. Not owner until I'm gone. Owner. Deed, county records, and my late husband's signature all say the same thing. Mine. At 4 p.m., I had my little ritual. Decaf coffee, a thin blanket over my knees, and my soap opera. Not because I have no life, like my daughter-in-law loves to say, but because after 40 years of keeping order in a library, shushing teenagers, helping students research, guiding generations through books, I earned the right to choose how I rest. The house was calm, until I heard the heels. Click, click, click. Not footsteps. An invasion. Brittany walked in like the floor owed her money. Designer perfume, a tight smile. That look people get when they've already decided you're beneath them. She didn't say hello. She never does. For Brittany, a greeting is wasted effort on someone who doesn't add value. She planted herself right in front of the TV, blocking my view at the exact moment the lead actress was about to confess her secret. Then Brittany shouted, loud enough for the whole house to hear, "This is trash. I'm so sick of this garbage." My mug froze in midair. Before I could even ask what was wrong with her, before I could blink, she bent down and yanked the cable right out of the wall. Not unplugged, not carefully disconnected. Yanked. Plastic cracked. The screen fizzed into gray static. And then, black. Dead. Silent. Brittany held the cable in her hand like she'd just ended a war. "In this house," she said, dragging my name through her teeth like it was dirt. "We watch intelligent things, Evelyn. I'm tired of coming home to all this screaming and nonsense. You drag down the vibe." I swallowed hard, not because I was scared, because I was stunned by the arrogance. Me, the woman who cataloged entire collections, who could recommend a book for any mood, who taught kids how to spot misinformation, who could quote poetry from memory, being lectured about intelligence by a woman who thinks culture is reposting motivational quotes on Instagram. And then she did something that made my stomach turn. Not because it hurt me, but because it was calculated. Brittany lifted her phone and turned the camera toward me. "Smile," she said sweetly. "I'm sending this to Mark." She hit FaceTime, put it on speaker, held the phone up like a courtroom exhibit. "Mark," she said, voice dripping with fake concern, "look at what your mom does all day. She's glued to this junk. It's not healthy. She's not okay." I saw myself reflected in the black TV screen, white hair pinned back, linen blouse, coffee in my hand, while the phone lens stared at me like an accusing eye. This wasn't a private argument anymore. It was public humiliation, packaged and delivered, so my own son would see me as weak, embarrassing, disposable. "Brittany," I managed, "put that away." She laughed. "Why? I'm helping. He needs to see the truth." And right then, like the universe wanted the moment to land, the front door opened. My son, Mark, walked in with his briefcase and that exhausted expression he uses like armor. The look that says, "I work hard, so I shouldn't have to deal with anything difficult." He saw Brittany filming. He saw the cable in her fist. He saw me sitting there, silent, rigid, blindsided. And I'll admit it. I waited. I waited for one sentence. "Brittany, stop." I waited for one shred of decency. But Mark didn't defend me. He did something worse than shouting. Mark smiled. A soft, compliant smile. The kind of smile men wear when they choose peace with their wife over honesty with their mother. Then he said, "Honestly, babe, good. It was about time someone set a standard. Mom's been watching that stuff nonstop. It rots the energy in the house. We need more productive vibes." That word, good, hit harder than the cable yanked from the wall. Because he didn't just ignore my humiliation. He celebrated it. And Brittany, oh, Brittany lit up like she'd just won a trophy. She angled the camera so it caught Mark's face agreeing with her. "See?" she said into the phone, sweet as poison. "Your mom gets offended over everything. But when we finally start living better, she'll thank us. When we start living better." That phrase lodged in my chest, because Brittany didn't say it like a hope. She said it like a plan. Like the house, my house, was already a pawn on her board. They walked into the kitchen, laughing, opening my refrigerator, using my kettle, acting like I was a piece of furniture they could walk around. And then, clear as day, I heard Brittany say something that made my blood go cold. "If we sell the house, we'll finally be out of debt, but we need your mom to sign without making drama. Sell my house." I didn't move. Not because I was powerless, because I was suddenly very, very clear. The soap opera wasn't the problem. I was the problem. I was the obstacle between Brittany and the prize. I looked again at my reflection in the dead TV screen, and I didn't see a victim. I saw a woman who had been generous for too long and had finally woken up. I set my mug down carefully, quiet, controlled. I picked up the broken cable from the floor. It wasn't trash. It was evidence. I rolled it neatly, library habit, and slipped it into my pocket. Then I went upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and sat at my old oak desk. The only piece of furniture Brittany never touched because it was too heavy to move. I opened the third drawer, the one with the false bottom my husband built years ago, and inside was an old hardcover book Brittany would never open. Tucked between the yellowed pages was a manila envelope. When I pulled it out, I felt the weight of paper like it was a weapon. My hands trembled, not from fear, from the realization that Brittany had underestimated one thing. A librarian doesn't just read stories. She learns how people operate, how systems work, how to find what's hidden. I opened the envelope. Inside were certified copies, a stamped deed, a dated letter with a notary seal, and one line that confirmed what Brittany didn't want me to remember. This house wasn't family property. It was mine, and if she wanted intelligent things, then tomorrow she was about to meet the intelligence of a woman who stops asking permission. That night I wrote a list. Not groceries, war, locksmith, bank, attorney, access, signatures, accounts. And while they slept downstairs, confident, smug, untouchable, I whispered one sentence to myself, slow and precise. "Tomorrow, your key won't turn." At 6 a.m., I made black coffee and laid the manila envelope on my table like a map before a battle. I didn't cry. I didn't send texts. I didn't record angry videos. Because when someone controls you, the first thing they want is your reaction, so they can call you dramatic, unstable, confused, senile. I wasn't giving them that label. I heard Mark and Brittany moving downstairs. Quick shower, complaints about traffic, keys jingling, like my home was a hotel, and I was the front desk. I waited for the front door to slam. I listened until the car backed out and disappeared. Then, silence. But this time, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like space. I went down to the living room. The TV sat there black and dead, the cable hanging like a reminder. I touched the edge of the screen and whispered, "Don't worry. Today we turn everything back on, but under new rules." Then I picked up the landline phone Brittany wanted to throw away because no one uses those. I dialed. Guardian Locksmith Services. My voice came out steady, the same voice I used to quiet an entire room full of students before finals. "I need a full lock change. Every exterior door. Today. Urgent. I'll pay cash." 35 minutes later, a locksmith arrived. Short, quiet, tool bag heavy. His name was Ray, the kind of man who doesn't ask questions, just gets to work. "Just the front?" he asked. "All of them," I said. "I want nothing that worked before to work now." The drill started. That sound wasn't noise. It was music. While Ray worked, I went upstairs to the room that used to be my reading nook, my sanctuary, until Brittany and Mark renamed it the productivity office and filled it with clutter. The moment I opened the door, the smell hit me. Fast food, artificial perfume, damp paper. My shelves, my beautiful shelves, were stuffed with boxes and fashion magazines. My books shoved into corners like they were embarrassing. I didn't spiral. I switched into librarian mode. Inventory, methodical, clinical. I slid aside an empty pizza box, and there it was, a bank envelope. Addressed to me. I tore it open. It was a statement for a platinum credit card I never applied for. Charges at a steakhouse, a boutique, electronics, thousands at a time. And the signature on file, close enough to mine to fool a lazy clerk, but wrong in the tiny places I could see instantly. I had to grip the desk. This wasn't disrespect. This was theft. I kept searching. In a drawer, I found Brittany's planner. Big, bubbly handwriting, childish and smug. I flipped ahead and saw a note circled in pink. Meet realtor, expansion plan, bye-bye old lady room, hello dream closet. There it was. Not just money, not just control. They were actively planning my erasure inside my own home. I took photos. I slipped the statement back into the envelope. I tucked the planner into a folder. Proof, dates, order. Downstairs, Ray finished the last screw. "Ma'am," he said. "High security deadbolt, reinforced cylinder. Nobody gets in without your key." He handed me 5 new keys. Heavy, bright, cold, not keys, borders. I paid him, tipped him well, and said the truth out loud. "You did more for me this morning than my own family has done in 2 years." Ray didn't respond. He just nodded once, like he understood everything without needing details. Step 2, the bank. Not by phone. In person. I put on a simple blouse, neat slacks, and lipstick. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I knew the game. If you stumble, they call you confused. If you cry, they call you unstable. If you raise your voice, they call you aggressive. I walked in calm, with evidence. At the desk, I said, clearly, "I need to review authorized users, additional cards, and the access history on my accounts." The banker's fingers moved fast over the keyboard. Her expression changed, just a notch. "Mrs. Morales, there's an authorized user linked to your profile, and an additional card." My throat tightened. "I want them removed today," I said. "And I want extra protection. Put a verbal password on my file. No changes without it, even if someone comes in with ID." That one detail mattered. Because abuse doesn't only happen at your front door. It happens through paperwork, through customer service, through helpful family members who know your birthday and your address. We turned on fraud alerts, locked down email changes, updated my phone number, flagged the account for possible takeover. I left the bank holding a printed confirmation, paper that felt like armor. Back home, I did the part people love to judge until it saves them. I packed. I walked into Mark and Brittany's room and pulled out 2 large suitcases. I didn't fold Brittany's clothes. I didn't protect her makeup. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. I filled 4 suitcases, heels, dresses, chargers, documents, shoes, everything, until they were bulging. Then I lined them up by the front door like defeated soldiers. I took a white sheet of paper and a thick black marker and wrote in big block letters, "You do not live here. All contact through attorney." I taped it inside the glass panel by the door, visible from outside. Then I sat down in my chair. And I waited. At 6:12 p.m., I heard the car. Brittany's voice first, irritated and sharp. The metal scrape of a key sliding into a lock. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, "What is wrong with this thing?" Brittany snapped. Mark tried next. More force, more twisting. Nothing. I didn't move. I poured myself a cup of coffee slowly, like time finally belonged to me. "Evelyn!" Brittany banged on the door. "Open up!" Mark's voice softened, the way it does when he wants me to fold. "Mom, please, don't make this a big deal. We just want to talk." I walked up to the door and spoke through it, calm and clear. "It's not big, Mark. It's legal. Silence. A different silence. A scared silence." I reached for the chain lock, just to crack the door enough to speak. And my phone buzzed. "Bank. Suspected activity." I answered. "Mrs. Morales," the operator said, "we have a request to change your email and a suspicious attempt to initiate a home equity application. Do you authorize?" I stared at the door, and I heard Brittany's voice outside, urgent, whisper shouting, "Mark, call the bank. Tell them your mom is confused. Tell them it's an emergency. Use the paperwork. Use the power. Get access." My stomach went cold, because the key not turning was only the first attack. Now they were trying to enter through the other door. My name, my accounts, my house. I smiled, slow and icy. "No," I said into the phone. "I authorize nothing. Freeze it. Document everything." And as Brittany hissed outside like a cornered animal, I realized something with perfect clarity. Block 3 wasn't going to be about a lock. It was going to be about how far they'd already gone, and what they thought they could take from me with a signature I didn't even know they were using. If you want, I'll continue with Block 3 and 4 next in the same USA packaging and pacing. Big shock in the first 30-45 seconds plus freeze ending. My phone was still warm in my hand when I heard Brittany through the door. "Mark, call the bank. Tell them your mom is confused. Tell them it's an emergency." I didn't answer her. I didn't even flinch, because the bank operator had just said something that snapped the whole picture into focus. "Mrs. Morales," she continued, voice tighter now, "I need extra confirmation. The email change request did not come from a branch. It came through the mobile app, using an account labeled as an authorized user from a device ending in 8421. And there was also an attempt to start a home equity loan application. Home equity. That phrase landed like a hammer. They weren't just trying to control me. They were trying to use my house like an ATM. Ma'am, the operator asked gently, are you alone right now? I'm alone, I said. And I authorize nothing. Please flag this as attempted account takeover. Lock down every channel. No changes without the verbal password. Understood, she said. Then she added almost cautiously, there's one more thing. Earlier today, our call center received a call from a man identifying himself as Mark Ramirez. He stated he is your son, and he said he has a power of attorney to act on your behalf. My mouth went dry. Power of attorney? I repeated slowly, like I was reading a title I didn't want to open. Yes, he said he can represent you. He requested access and asked about initiating the loan process. Behind the door, Mark's voice turned soft. Too soft. Mom, please, just open up. Brittany's overreacting. We can talk like adults. Brittany cut in, louder. Stop begging! Evelyn, if you don't open, we'll bring someone who can handle this. You can't lock us out like dogs. Handle this. That wasn't just anger. That was a threat with paperwork. I stepped away from the door and went to my kitchen table. I opened my red folder, the one Brittany never touched because it looked old. Inside was the manila envelope. The deed copies were there. Yes, but so was the letter my husband left me, dated and notarized, written in his careful handwriting. One line was underlined twice. Evelyn Morales is the sole owner. The second line felt like he had written it for this exact day. Any representation attempted without her informed voluntary consent must be challenged immediately. I didn't panic. I executed. I went upstairs, shut my bedroom door, and called the attorney whose number I'd written on my war list. Law Office of Daniel Pierce. This is Evelyn Morales, I said. It's happening. What happened? The attorney asked, instantly sharp. Someone tried to change my bank email through the app. The bank says my son called claiming he has power of attorney, and there's an attempt to start a home equity loan against my property. There was a silence on the line, only a second, but it weighed a ton. Mrs. Morales, he said, did you sign any power of attorney in the last few years? And the truth hurt. Because yes, I had signed something once. Mark told me it was just in case, for emergencies, if I got sick, if I needed help. I'd trusted my son in small ways, the kind of small ways that become traps later. I signed one document, I admitted. 2 years ago, Mark said it was limited. I didn't read every page. Okay, Daniel Pierce said, voice turning colder. Then we need a copy of that document immediately. Because if he's trying to use it to sell or borrow against your home, that is abuse. And possibly fraud depending on how it was obtained and how it's being used. My stomach nodded. What do I do right now? I asked. Do not open that door, he said. If anyone shows up claiming authority, you stay calm. Ask for identification. And you say one sentence exactly. I am the sole homeowner. I do not consent to entry. My attorney is on the way. Understood. I ended the call. Then I heard it. An engine outside, heavier than a car. I moved to the side window and pulled the curtain back 2 inches. A white SUV had parked at the curb. 2 people stepped out. One man in a pressed button-down holding a clipboard, and a woman in a vest with an official-looking logo that made my heart stutter. Adult Protective Services. Brittany moved fast, like she'd rehearsed this. She ran to them, clutching her phone, shaking her head, making a show of wiping imaginary tears. She pointed at my front door. Then she pointed at my window. Then she pointed at my age. I could hear her voice through the glass, syrupy and desperate. It's my mother-in-law, she said loudly so the neighbors could hear. She's confused. She locked us out. She's having episodes. We're worried about her safety. Mark stood behind her, looking down at the sidewalk. He didn't correct her. He didn't defend me. Not once. Then another man appeared, this one wearing khakis and holding a leather folder. He glanced at the house like he'd been here before, and he walked right up to my porch. Tap, tap, tap. Mrs. Evelyn Morales? A male voice called. I'm here for the scheduled property visit. I'm a realtor. I was asked to verify the home and discuss listing details. My lungs forgot how to work. Realtor, verify, listing. That meant one thing. They hadn't just talked about selling. They had already started something. I looked down at my phone. Another buzz. An email notification popped up. Subject line, listing intake started. Property under review. My vision narrowed. I stared at that subject line like it was a gun pointed at my name. Behind the door, Brittany's voice rose, triumphant now. You see, Evelyn? This is happening with or without your little TV. Open up! I didn't open. Not because I was scared. Because if I opened, Brittany would turn the entire scene into one story. Old lady confused. Old lady paranoid. Old lady needs help. And then the paperwork could move without me. I took a breath. Slow, steady. Like I was back in the library facing a room full of teenagers trying to test me. Then I spoke through the door, loud enough for everyone outside to hear. Good afternoon. Before anything, I need identification. And I'm informing you now, I am the sole homeowner. I did not authorize any visit, any listing, any loan, or any evaluation. My attorney is on the way. There was a pause outside. A shift. The woman from APS stepped closer. Mrs. Morales, she said, we received a report of possible vulnerability. We were told you're isolated, not eating well, and there's conflict. We're here to make sure you're safe. Brittany jumped in, voice trembling theatrically. She's aggressive. She changed the locks. We're just trying to help. I shut my eyes for 1 second and pictured the cable Brittany ripped from my wall. Then I opened them. I am safe, I said clearly. But I am also being targeted for financial exploitation. I have documentation. If you're following protocol, I'm happy to speak. Through the door. Until my attorney arrives. The realtor cleared his throat. Ma'am, I was contacted by family representation, he said, reading from his paperwork. I was told there was consent. Representation? I repeated. And who gave you that? Brittany snapped, losing control. Mark has power of attorney. He can sign. He can do what he needs to do. She said it in front of APS, in front of a realtor, in front of neighbors now peeking from behind curtains. A confession, loud and public. I looked through the glass and asked Mark, quiet, deadly calm. Mark, are you going to tell these strangers you have the right to sell my house? He didn't answer. His silence was the loudest thing on the street. And that's when I heard tires, a car door slam, and fast footsteps. A voice called out, Mrs. Morales, do not open the door. It was attorney Daniel Pierce. He walked straight up to the gate with a thick folder in his hand and the kind of calm that makes liars sweat. And the moment he arrived, I felt the shift. Because Brittany didn't just bring an audience, she brought witnesses. And now the story wasn't old woman confused. It was family trying to steal. Daniel looked at APS, then the realtor, then Brittany, then Mark. And he said one sentence that made the street go still. I represent Mrs. Evelyn Morales. Any activity involving this property is suspended effective immediately. Brittany's smile faltered. And in that falter, right before Daniel opened his folder, I realized something with a sick certainty. If Mark was calling the bank claiming power of attorney, then somewhere there was a document with my signature on it. A document I didn't understand. A document that could cost me everything. And just as I thought that, Daniel's phone buzzed. His face changed. He turned the screen toward me through the glass. A message. From an unknown number. With a photo attached. A scanned document. The title was visible even in the tiny preview. Durable power of attorney. General. And at the bottom, my signature. I felt the world freeze. Because Block 4 wasn't going to be about locks. It was going to be about the most dangerous paper in the world. The paper you sign, thinking it's love. The image on Daniel Pierce's phone held me in place. Durable power of attorney. General. My full legal name. My signature. My handwriting. My mistake. Outside, Brittany's face lit up like she'd been waiting for that moment. Told you, she called through the glass. We have power, so open up and stop acting crazy. The realtor stood stiff, clearly wanting to disappear. The APS worker's expression had changed too, less sympathetic, more alert. Daniel's voice stayed low, controlled. Mrs. Morales, he said, breathe. A power of attorney isn't magic, and if it's being abused, we can challenge it. But we have to move precisely. My librarian brain kicked in. Not emotion, not panic. Index, categorize, find the crack. What does general mean? I asked. It depends on the language, Daniel said. But even broad POAs have limits. Conflict of interest, exploitation, lack of informed consent, and whether it was obtained through deception or undue influence. Also, POAs can be revoked. Brittany grew impatient. Do it already, she barked at Mark. Tell them you can sign. I heard Mark inhale like his lungs were collapsing. He didn't speak. Daniel turned slightly toward the APS worker. Ma'am, thank you for coming. I want to be clear. Mrs. Morales is lucid and oriented. What you're seeing is not confusion. It's her protecting herself from attempted financial exploitation. Then Daniel looked at the realtor. And you, he said, calm but sharp, need to tell me, right now, who contacted you, through what channel and what documents you were sent. The realtor swallowed. I got a call, he admitted, from a number listed as her son. I was emailed this POA photo and told consent was already handled. Do you still have the email? Daniel asked. Yes. Good, Daniel said. You'll provide that in writing, signed, dated, because you may have been used as a tool. Brittany snapped back, switching into victim mode like flipping a light. This is unbelievable, she cried loudly. We've been living here 2 years. We've invested. We have rights. Daniel didn't look at her. He looked at Mark. Mr. Ramirez, he said, if you attempt to use a POA to list, sell, or borrow against Mrs. Morales' home without her informed consent, especially when you personally benefit, you are stepping into criminal territory. Mark's face drained. Mom? He stammered. I didn't want it like this. And Brittany, because she can't stand when control slips, blurted the one line she should have swallowed. I already talked to the notary, so it's happening either way. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What notary? He asked, tone still calm, but colder now. Brittany froze, lips parting like she realized she'd just spoken out loud in front of witnesses. Mark turned to her, panicked. Brittany, he whispered, like begging her to shut up. Daniel nodded once. That's useful, he said, because we're going to do 2 things. Revoke this POA and place immediate notice with the relevant offices so nobody processes anything based on it. Brittany laughed. Too loud, too fake. Revoke it? Here? On the street? Come on. Daniel didn't blink. Yes, he said. And for the record, I already called the proper notary, not your shortcut notary. He's on the way. Brittany's smile slid right off her face. Wait, what? She muttered. Then she whispered, but loud enough for me to hear through the glass. That's not our notary. Our. The word was a stain. Since when does a notary belong to a couple trying to sell someone else's house? I couldn't help it. I said it out loud, calm and clear through the door. Brittany, since when is a notary ours? The APS worker's eyebrows lifted. She wrote something down. Neighbors had gathered now, subtle at first, then bolder. A screen door across the street opened. Someone stood on their porch. Brittany hated this. She loved humiliating me privately. But public sunlight? She melted in it. A few minutes later, a car pulled up. An older man stepped out with a leather portfolio and a sealed packet. He walked like someone who had seen every kind of family war and didn't care about tears. Good afternoon, he said. I'm Notary Public Harold Green. I was asked to handle an urgent revocation. Brittany went pale. Mark looked like he might throw up. Notary Green looked at Daniel, then at the APS worker, then at the realtor, then at the house. Finally, he turned his attention to me. Mrs. Morales, he called, are you revoking a durable power of attorney granted to your son, Mark Ramirez, dated approximately 2 years ago? Yes, I answered without hesitation. I revoke it, and I do not authorize any listing, sale, loan, or transfer involving my home. Notary Green nodded. He didn't rush. He explained the essentials quickly and clearly, exactly how it should have been explained to me the day I signed it. Then he slid the revocation paperwork forward in his packet. Mrs. Morales, he said, you will sign here. I'll notarize. Your attorney will file and notify the appropriate parties. I signed, but this time I read, and I felt something inside me lock into place, like the new deadbolt on my door. Notary Green turned toward Mark. Sir, he said, be aware, attempting to use a revoked POA or continuing actions after being notified can carry serious legal consequences. Brittany took a step back. For the first time, I saw her without her mask. Not powerful, not superior, just scared. Mark's voice cracked. Mom, Brittany said it was the only way, he admitted. She said if we sold the house, we'd be out of debt. She said you don't even use it anymore. You don't use it anymore. My home reduced to use, like it was a tool. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I asked him one question softly. Do you know the exact moment you stopped being my son and became my enemy? Mark's eyes filled. No. When you clapped, I said. When she ripped the cable out of my wall and you clapped. That moment was your signature on something worse than a POA. You signed your loyalty to someone who despises me. Brittany exploded, desperate to regain the narrative. She watches trash all day. She's ruining our lives. I smiled, small, controlled, and it shook her more than anger ever could. Brittany, I said, intelligence isn't banning TV. Intelligence is not stealing from an older woman and then calling her crazy when she defends herself. Daniel stepped forward, voice firm. Mr. Ramirez, Ms. Hayes, effective immediately, there is a notarized revocation. There is documented attempted bank activity. There are witnesses. My recommendation is simple. Leave. Brittany looked around. APS, realtor, notary, attorney, neighbors watching, no private stage, no easy smear. She turned her phone on me anyway. Last attempt. Look at her, she shouted. This old woman is going to die alone. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I said one sentence that landed like a closing argument. Better alone than robbed. Brittany's hand lowered. Because you can't argue with truth. They walked away from my door with their suitcases still lined up, their key still useless, their plan exposed. But Daniel looked at me through the glass and spoke low enough that only I could hear. Mrs. Morales, this isn't over yet. Now we do the hardest part. We lock everything down permanently, and we decide what happens with your son. I inhaled slowly. Because the next step wasn't a lock. It was a boundary. And as I watched Mark disappear down my driveway, I realized something heavier than victory. The end of this story wasn't going to be about getting my house back. It was going to be about deciding who gets to be in my life, when they've already tried to sell it. Daniel Pierce didn't celebrate. He didn't do a victory speech. He didn't pat me on the shoulder and say, all done. He did something better. He leaned closer to the glass and said low, Evelyn, now we move fast. Because once people like Brittany lose the door, they attack the paper. He was right. Because Brittany didn't really want my living room. She wanted my signature, my accounts, my house, converted into cash. Notary Green finished stamping the revocation packet, then slid a second document across the portfolio. This is an affidavit of revocation and a notice to third parties, he said. Your attorney will deliver it to the bank, the county records office, and any broker or lender involved. Brittany heard the words, records office and bank, and her eyes sharpened. Then she did what manipulators do when the plan collapses. She tried to rewrite reality in real time. Oh my God, she cried, turning her voice into a performance for the street. This is elder abuse. Look at her. She's being coached. She's being pressured. Daniel didn't react. He simply turned to the APS worker. Ma'am, please document that Ms. Hayes is now alleging abuse as retaliation, while there are documented attempts to change bank credentials and initiate a home equity loan. That pattern is classic financial exploitation. The APS worker nodded and wrote again. Calm, professional, unimpressed by Brittany's theater. Brittany realized her confused old woman narrative was dying, so she switched tactics. She stepped toward Mark, too close, and hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Tell them you signed already. Tell them you started the process. Tell them it's done. Mark looked like his spine had turned to water. And suddenly I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit. Brittany wasn't the only villain. Mark was the one with my information. Mark was the one who knew my birthday, my answers, my habits. Mark was the key Brittany used. Daniel spoke again, crisp and direct. Mark, he said, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need a clear answer. Did you use a power of attorney to contact a realtor or lender regarding this home? Mark's throat moved. He glanced at Brittany. Then he whispered, yes. The street went quiet. Even the realtor's face changed, like he just realized he'd walked into something ugly. Daniel nodded once, like he'd already known. Thank you, he said. That's admission of representation with personal benefit. Now listen carefully. If any application, listing, or loan has been opened, we will demand the full audit trail. IP logs, email addresses, phone numbers, and call recordings. Brittany snapped. You can't do that. Daniel didn't even look at her. I can, he said, and I will. Then Daniel turned to me. Evelyn, he said, I need you to do something hard but simple. What? I asked. Stay calm, he said. We're about to ask for documents from the realtor and APS, and Brittany will try to provoke you into looking unstable. I nodded. Because Brittany's favorite weapon wasn't a lawyer. It was making me look emotional enough that people stopped believing me. The realtor cleared his throat. I have the email, he said quickly. I can forward it now. It shows the contact name as Mark Ramirez, and the email was something like, family home. I can confirm in writing. Do that, Daniel said, and include every attachment you received. The APS worker stepped forward, voice steady. Mrs. Morales, I'm going to record that you declined entry, that you stated you are safe, and that there are indicators of attempted financial exploitation. If you want, we can also note that the report appears weaponized. Yes, I said. Please note that. Brittany's face tightened, like someone had cut her oxygen. Then she tried her last social move. She turned and waved to the neighbors. Everyone sees this, right? She called. She's locking her own family out. She's unstable. I didn't answer Brittany. I answered the street, loud enough for the porch cameras, loud enough for the curtains. My home, I said calmly, was targeted for a loan and a sale without my consent. My bank was attacked through the app. A realtor was sent here under false representation. This is not a family argument. This is attempted theft. The word theft made the neighbors shift, because family drama is entertaining. But theft changes the air. Brittany's voice went shrill. You're lying. Daniel raised one hand. Ms. Hayes, he said, still calm, your best move right now is silence. Brittany did not know how to be silent, so she got nastier. She jabbed a finger at the door and screamed, she watches trash all day. She's old. She forgets things. She signed. She doesn't even remember signing. Notary Green looked up, slow. Ma'am, he said, that statement right there, about her age and memory, while pushing for financial control, is exactly the kind of pressure we look for when determining undue influence. Brittany's mouth opened, then closed. Her confidence wobbled. Mark stepped forward like he wanted to say something kind, but even kindness from him felt dangerous now. Mom, he said quietly, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stared at him through the glass. You mean you didn't mean for it to get caught, I said. Mark's face fell. Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked it and his jaw tightened. Evelyn, he said, your bank just emailed the audit summary. The attempted changes were initiated from a device registered to an email address that ends in Brittany's initials. Brittany froze. The street heard nothing, but I saw the truth land on her like a slap. And then Daniel said the sentence that turned the whole thing from attempt to case. There's also a note from the call center, he continued, reading. The caller, Mark, asked whether a home equity loan could be fast-tracked because his mother is elderly and easily overwhelmed. I felt heat rise in my chest, not rage, something sharper, a clean, cold disgust. Mark looked at Brittany like he'd never seen her before. Brittany looked at Mark like he was disposable. And I saw it, clear as a book spine in perfect light. They weren't a couple. They were a scheme. Daniel tucked the phone away. Okay, he said. Step 1, we file immediate notice and revoke any authority. Step 2, we lock your financial identity down. Step 3, we decide how to handle criminal exposure. Brittany lunged forward, voice cracking. Evelyn, you wouldn't call the cops on your own son. There it was. The final chain, the guilt rope. They count on it. They count on mothers choosing shame over safety. I leaned closer to the glass. My voice stayed low, so only they could hear. You applauded when she humiliated me, I told Mark. You tried to borrow against my home. You used my life as collateral. Don't ask me to protect you from the consequences you chose. Mark's eyes filled. Brittany's eyes narrowed. She was calculating again. And then she played the most dangerous card. If you ruin him, she hissed, I'll tell everyone you're senile. I'll make sure they take the house from you anyway. Daniel's face didn't change, but his voice did. Threatening to smear her competency after being exposed is helpful, he said. Because now I can request a protective order and submit this as pattern behavior. Brittany's mouth trembled. Mark whispered, Brittany, stop. And Brittany, because she can't stop, spat one last insult that turned every stomach on that street. She's going to die alone in there, clinging to a dumb TV. I held her gaze, and I said, loud enough for the neighbors this time, I'd rather be alone than be robbed by people who call themselves family. Silence. Then Brittany did the only thing she had left. She grabbed Mark's arm, yanked him toward the car, and hissed, Fine, let's go. She'll regret it. But as she dragged him away, I saw Mark's face. Not anger, fear, because he finally understood something. He hadn't been locked out of a house. He'd been locked out of a mother. Daniel looked at me through the glass. Evelyn, he said quietly, this next part is where most women break. Don't break. I nodded. Because I wasn't going to. And when their car disappeared down the street, I didn't breathe out in relief. I breathed out in decision. Because the last lock I needed to change was the one in my heart that still wanted to call him my boy. That night, after the street emptied and the porch cameras stopped blinking like eyes, my house went quiet in a way it hadn't been in years. Not lonely quiet, owned quiet. Daniel Pierce sat at my dining table with my folders spread like a map. Notary Green had already left, but his stamp still echoed in my mind. Revoked. 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 Daniel looked around my living room, at the dead TV cable still hanging like a scar, and said something that made my throat tighten. Evelyn, this happens to more women than you think, and most of them lose because they don't want to make a scene. A scene, I repeated. He nodded. They count on your dignity, he said. They weaponize it. I looked at my war list on the table. Locks, done. Bank, done. Attorney, done. POA revocation, done. Evidence, growing. But there was one item no lawyer could complete for me. Son. Daniel laid out the plan in clean steps. 1. Identity and account lockdown. New passwords, new recovery emails, new phone authentication. Remove every authorized user. Freeze credit. Add verbal passphrase. 2. Paper firewall. File POA revocation with county notice. Notify the realtor's brokerage in writing. Submit bank audit to fraud department. 3. Legal consequences. Police report for attempted financial exploitation. Civil demand for repayment of fraudulent charges. Possible restraining order if harassment continues. 4. Estate protection. Updated will. Named executor not Mark. Clear no contest language. Explicit exclusion of anyone who attempts coercion. He looked at me kindly. The question, he said, is not whether you can win. You already did. The question is how far you're willing to go to keep them from trying again. I swallowed. Because how far is where mothers bleed. The next morning I went to the bank in person, not as a helpless elderly woman, as the owner of my name. I asked for the fraud manager and said one sentence that changed the way they treated me. I am reporting attempted account takeover and attempted loan initiation against my home. I'm requesting a full audit trail and written confirmation. I watched the manager's face turn serious. They printed logs. They confirmed the authorized user changes. They confirmed the phone call. They confirmed the attempted email updates. And they said something that made me go cold. Mrs. Morales, if you had waited even a day, this could have advanced to underwriting. You acted at the edge. At the edge. I left with a thick folder and a calmer heart. Because calm isn't what you feel when life is safe. Calm is what you feel when you finally become dangerous to people who thought you were easy. When I got home, there was an envelope slipped under my gate. No stamp. No return address. Just a single sheet inside. Mark's handwriting. Mom, I'm sorry. Brittany pushed me. I didn't want this. I stared at it for a long time. Because that sentence is how adults try to crawl out of consequences. I didn't want this. As if wanting matters more than doing. That evening at 6, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Mark. Alone. No Brittany. No attitude. Just a man who looked like someone had unplugged his ego. I opened the security gate but kept the door locked. A boundary you can see. Mark's voice cracked. Mom, I need to talk. You can talk from there, I said. He swallowed hard. Brittany left, he said. She said if I couldn't get the house, I was useless. She walked out. I didn't gasp. I didn't comfort him. I just nodded once, like I'd expected it. And now you're here, I said, because the other door closed. Mark flinched. No, he rushed, tears already forming. I'm here because I'm ashamed. I'm scared. I see what I did. I looked at him the way I used to look at students who tried to cheat and then begged for mercy. Not angry, just clear. Mark, I said softly, the problem isn't that she left you. The problem is that you left me first. His shoulders shook. I know, he whispered. Please, please forgive me. I'll fix it. I'll work. I'll pay back everything. I'll do anything. Anything. That word is a broom. Families use it to sweep abuse under the rug. I took a breath. Then I said, steady and exact, you're going to do 3 things. Mark lifted his head like a drowning man seeing shore. First, I said, you're going to sign a written acknowledgement of the debt. Every charge made in my name. Dates, amounts, a payment plan, no excuses. He nodded fast. Yes. Second, I continued, you're going to hand over any copy of that POA, any bank login, any email access, any password, any document, everything. You don't keep backup control of me. His face tightened. Okay. Third, I said, you're leaving, and you are not coming back into this house without permission. Mark's mouth opened, stunned. You're not letting me in? Not today, I said. Maybe not ever. Tears ran down his face. Mom, do you hate me? That question hit deep, because it's designed to pull the mother back into the old job, comfort him, rescue him, make it easy. I stepped closer to the gate and looked him straight in the eyes. I don't hate you, I said. He exhaled like he'd been spared. Then I finished the sentence. Hate would be easy. What's hard is accepting who you became, and still choosing to protect myself. Mark nodded slowly, like a man hearing his sentence. I understand, he whispered. I slipped a paper through the gate, Daniel Pierce's contact details. You talk to him, I said. You sign what you owe, you follow the plan, and you learn to live without stealing. Mark's hands shook as he took it. Thank you, he said quietly. For not calling the police. I held his gaze. I didn't do that for you, I said. I did it for me. Because I decide how my story ends. Mark took one last look at the door he used to call home. Then he walked away. I closed the security gate. I locked it. And for the first time in years, I did something small that felt huge. I turned on my TV. Not because I needed noise, because I was allowed to choose joy in my own house. The screen glowed, and my eyes drifted to the cable mark on the wall, the place Brittany ripped control out of my hands. I smiled softly, because the real lesson wasn't about novels. It was about ownership, of property, of money, of dignity. That night, I taped a sign inside the front window where anyone on the porch could read it. Not residents, all contact through legal counsel. And if you're listening to my story, let me ask you something. Has anyone ever tried to make you feel like trash in your own home? If they have, listen to me. You don't beg for dignity. You don't negotiate for respect. You claim it. And in this house, I choose what plays.